Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Champagne and JD. I'm Andrew Champagne alongside JD Fox. Our guest this week, coming back for his second go around on this show, needs no introduction, but you know what, JD? I'm going to give him one anyway because that's just the kind of guy I am. He's pretty much everywhere in the horse racing scene right now, especially if you're on Twitter. But the real reason we got him is because of whatever the heck is going on down here. Gino Buccola is here with us, one of my best friends in the game. Gino, welcome to the show.
Hey, boys.
Before we get any further, what is going on here? Because when we talk on our the other show that we do together, our cousin podcast, That's What G Said thing, we're doing Skype as opposed to doing a video thing. This is my first time actually seeing the beard, and I'm expecting a squirrel to pop out of there.
This thing is gnarly, I'll tell you. I started growing it, and I actually remember it was not long. It was right around the Derby because it was the Lakers starting in the playoffs because I did the little video with you. And I said I got the playoff beard, and it was just starting. And this is the longest beard I've ever had because I don't like the beard. It bothers me. My son now pulls hairs out of it. He grabs it. Like, things get stuck in it. There's food in there sometimes. Like, water's dripping down and it gets caught. And now I'm starting to see my age because the grays are popping, grays all over. So I'm actually, and my girlfriend won't touch me, like, not in weeks. Wants nothing to do with me. She's just like, I'm going to bed hours before me, nothing at all. So I'll be happy when it's gone, and hopefully it'll be a Dodger World Series after a Laker NBA title. If I get 2 titles out of it, this beard was worth it.
I mean, I'm just saying the only reason we were able to get this guy on the show tonight is, in fact, because it's the game. That's the day between games 2 and 3 of the World Series, and the Dodgers and Rays had the day off.
Yep, great night, perfect timing.
It's almost like we planned this stuff with that knowledge in advance. So we're going to cover a lot of ground on this show. We'll talk about a couple of Triple Crowns, and we'll dive into the late pick 4 on Maryland Million Day at Laurel Park. It's a really cool, fascinating sequence that we're going to go to. However, big news broke before we filmed this on Thursday. We actually blew up the rundown and rebuilt it. We don't like talking about this stuff. Nobody likes talking about this stuff, let's be real. But it came out on Thursday that Gamine has tested positive for a banned substance following her third-place finish in the Kentucky Oaks. This, of course, her second positive test of the year after testing positive for a different substance down at Oaklawn Park. JD, you had the statement from Bob Baffert's lawyer as a result of everything that happened. Dive into this a little bit more for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna read the statement verbatim until we get bored. The current reporting on Gamine is inaccurate and needs to be cleared up. First, betamethasone is a legal, commonly used substance, commonly used anti-inflammatory medication. It is not a banned substance. Second, the medication was administered to Gamine on August 17th by her veterinarian and on a veterinarian's recommendation. Importantly, the veterinarian followed established medical and regulatory guidelines in administering the medication. The withdrawal guidelines published by the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission recommend that the medication not be given within 14 days of a race. In this instance, as an additional layer of protection, Gamine's veterinarian last treated her with betamethasone 18 days before the Oaks. The test revealed 27 picograms, and the current threshold is 10 picograms. A picogram is 1 trillionth of a gram, so it is a very minor amount, but it is above the allowed threshold in Kentucky, so it is a positive test.
2.5 times above the amount, right? Even if it's a small amount, that's still quite a bit above the amount. This is because what are we? We're bettors, right? So this is immediately when stuff like this happens, it just really leaves a sour taste in my mouth because first and foremost, I am a bettor, and we saw this happen with the Gamine earlier in the year. And when this happens with horses, what ends up happening? Who's really the only people that get screwed? Unfortunately, the bettors, because we don't get our money back if we bet against these horses, and they lose. Or what if you had the trifecta in the Oaks and she ran third, and you had the horse that was fourth? Or I was playing against her in the Oaks, so if she would have won that race right now, I would have been quite unhappy, having
the show would have been even more entertaining.
Yeah, having a She Dares the Devil and a Swiss Skydiver finishing second and third behind, her, if that would have been the case. So, and of course, because it is Bob Baffert, who is the most well-known trainer in horse racing. A huge polarizing figure, whether you stand one way or the other. And because this is, I believe in the article that we read, the 28th incident that he's had, and he's been on the wrong side of some bad stuff. So this could be a very small thing. I don't pretend to be a vet when it comes to stuff like this, so I'm not a complete expert with the Pico, with the exact amounts. But as somebody who covers racing and has covered racing for a long time, it's unfortunate because the one thing comes to mind, Andrew, you came on my show when the information came out about Service and Navarro, and we had a really long podcast going over all that stuff. That didn't get uncovered because of horse racing. That got uncovered because of the FBI, right? Like outside. So that's what still bothers me, is that if these kind of things, like, we found out about this again, we wouldn't have found out about this in horse racing. They're never transparent with us. And so we're always playing this guessing game. How much did this matter? Does it matter? Did it matter at Oaklawn? Because then she came back and what happened when she came back in New York and ran? Was she on it then? It's frustrating because there's a lot going wrong, a lot we can talk about that goes wrong in horse racing, and then these things come up, and especially with Baffert, it's unfortunate because you have to talk about it, and we won't know everything for 6 more months, and by that time, did she win the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of different takes on this situation from a couple of different standpoints. First of all, it's 2020, so if we were playing this out, here's the way this would go down. This doesn't get resolved for months. Gamine not only runs in the Filly and Mare Sprint on Breeders' Cup Day, she wins by about 20, because that's just the most 2020 thing to happen in horse racing.
Yeah.
The other standpoints I have a vote for the Eclipse Awards at the end of the year. And between the stuff that happened with Service and Navarro, the stuff that's come out about Justify's thing back in 2018, whatever that was, the stuff that came out about Gamine both earlier this year at Oaklawn and now, it's really making voters, at least in my case, reevaluate how they treat not just the horses involved, but trainers. I know voters who abstain from the trainer voting because of situations like this, because we don't necessarily have the full story on, okay, who's doing what, who's clean, who's dirty, who's dirtier than somebody else. We don't know. And that is not to say, by the way, that everybody's cheating or whatever. I am not going that route. I'm not going the route of saying, hey, Baffert got caught again. Baffert's dirty. That's not my thing. I'm not a vet. I'm not a trainer. I could never work on the backside of a racetrack. The only thing I know about horse anatomy is there's a head in the front, there's a rear end in the back. Somewhere you're hoping there's an engine and correct wiring in there. Having said that, my last point. The substance in question here is a painkiller. Horses are not as sound now as they were in generations past. Isn't the easiest fix to breed a better horse? That way we don't have to worry about giving them these medications. I'm just saying, I understand that the breeding industry and the racing industry don't necessarily have the same goals. And you know what? That's fine on paper. In practice, we wind up with horses running shorter and shorter time spans, not running as many races in that time period, not running races that are as long. The Jockey Club Gold Cup getting 5 horses? Really?
Yeah.
Just saying. If that doesn't scream, we need to breed a sounder horse, I don't know what will. The problem is those horses sell for $20,000 at sales, and the horses that reek of brilliance, you can add a 0 onto that, and money talks.
Yeah, no, I think there's some good points there, and I think you both hit the nail on the head. None of us are veterinarians that are on this podcast, so we're not going to try to determine the severity of that, if that was something that could alter a horse's performance. That's not our judgment. But going back to what Gino said, I mean, we're bettors, and we know that the possibility was there for an advantage. Somebody was playing outside of the rule book. Somebody was coloring outside the lines, whether it be very slightly or a lot. We're not in a position right now to tell, but that's what we have to look at it as a better, and transparency is the big problem here. I mean, we heard about this from the New York Times. New York Times doesn't really cover horse racing, so that tells you what you need to know.
They do have Joe Drape, just saying he has been covering horse racing for a while, and for better or for worse, was prominent in the PETA story several years ago. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like what had happened in baseball with the Astros too. It's like we only found out about that stuff because people started talking. We didn't find out about it because the internal sport investigated itself and told us what went down. That's what stinks about all of this. That's still what bothers me, is that like you said, we're finding this out from the Times. We're finding these things out from the FBI, from reports. We're not finding this out from our own racetrack saying, hey, this is what happened. There was positive. Let's just be really upfront about it. And because if I was Baffert and his lawyer, I wouldn't. It's weird that these things have come out this way too, right? They don't come out this way for other people because Baffert's a more popular, polarizing figure. We know him. This really wouldn't be not that big of a deal, but like you wouldn't hear about it if it was a smaller horse on a smaller scale, right? It's a big deal because it's Gamine, it's Baffert, and this happened again. That's the same horse twice this year. So whatever, I can understand things happening once, but the thing, and I've interacted with Baffert plenty of times personally. I like him quite a bit, but when you see a top flight outfit that, let's be honest, they know better as well as any barn what they're doing, what they're giving to their horses, what's going in and out. I mean, they run a tight ship. They are as well of an oiled machine as any barn anywhere in racing. So I have a tough time believing, and then maybe it was a completely honest mistake twice. It just is hard to believe that that's happened twice with a barn that I know and that we've all seen. They're sharp. I mean, they're not dumb. They know what they're doing over there. So this happened twice now again, like an accident the first time, and this was another accident.
The one thing I will say before we move on to some of the other things that we've got planned for the show is this does bring to mind the issue of what happened with Masochistic several years ago when he ran in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I believe ran second or third in the Breeders' Cup Sprint and wound up testing positive for a similar slight overage. And Ron Ellis may be one of the most highly respected horsemen on the Southern California circuit, certainly was at the time. And that was a situation where I think the difference here is this one has the potential to play out far, far quicker than that one did. That one went for 6 or 9 months. Masochistic wasn't allowed to run the Breeders' Cup the next year. Ron Ellis got hit with a pretty significant suspension. Some pretty significant penalties were certainly levied there. We'll see what happens here. This is obviously still very much a developing situation, and we'll certainly have more on this by the time we see you next week for our Breeders' Cup show. Actually, wow.
2 weeks,
not
right?
next week, is it? 2 weeks, right?
No, 2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks. Okay. It's been a really long week for me. I'm just saying, I can't tell you what's in this Santa Claus mug. I got the Santa Claus mug out just to make Gino laugh.
It better be hot Coke. I've got a tie just like that. The Santa's face is that face is the tie. It looks like the Santa from like Rudolph, right? I think it is.
A little bit, yeah.
It might be, yeah.
I'm just saying, there's a lot of space in this mug too. You can fit a
better be
lot.
hot cocoa and some marshmallows in there.
It might be. Nice. Although I'm not as much of a marshmallow guy as most people are. It's weird. But regardless, JD, you wanted to spend some time talking about not one, but 2 Triple Crown bids that are coming up in various different countries. Obviously, the American Triple Crown races have come and gone, but not so in Canada or Japan.
And normally they would have already happened as well. So we're all getting used to this new calendar that is 2020 only. And we've got the Breeder Stakes at Woodbine on Saturday. It's going to be taking part. It's race 10. It'll be 5:43 Eastern time, 2:43 Pacific time. And we have Mighty Heart going for the Triple Crown sweep. Will be the the first horse since 2003 with Wando to do it if it happens. Mighty Heart, the even money favorite, and Andrew loves one-eyed horses, and we also know some. Jeremy Balin loves one-eyed horses.
Oh,
we
yeah.
go over
Patch
the
is
list
his
of
favorite horse.
Patch. And what, Finnick the Fierce? From
Finnick
another
the
one?
Fierce is JD's horse, actually.
Yeah, there
That's-
you go.
that's
I don't know if
that's
you
my
saw,
horse.
but I got the pointed direction wrong.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
But we put together something on Mighty Heart and the first 2 wins in the Triple Crown, and we'll go ahead and play that for you now.
On the outside, Curlin's Voyage. It's Mighty Heart kicking right back. Mighty Heart still in front. Clayton in second. Running on his dotted line in behind the top 4 as they corner, but it's Mighty Heart in front, the one to catch. In the Queen's Play, chased by Clayton. Then to Cumsy's War, and behind them Curlin's Voyage, but Mighty Heart is long gone. Mighty Heart has got the Queen's Play completely wrapped up, and this is a dominant performance. Daisuke Fukumoto, Mighty Heart, full of heart by 8 lengths. Belichick second.
The fence and comes to call on the outside. Clayton is asked to dig deep. Here on the outside comes Mighty Heart. Mighty Heart very calmly on the outside with no urging from Daisuke Fukumoto. He glides right on by. He was never worried. Mighty Heart, mightiest again. He's 2/3 of the way to the Canadian Triple Crown.
And what's interesting with Josie Carroll sending Mighty Heart to post as the even money favorite on Saturday, I think the other probable contender there is Belichick, who will draw the 9-hole right outside the 8-hole that Mighty Heart has drawn, also trained by Josie Carroll. A maiden, but a very strong second-place performance in the first race we saw there, going back to the Queen's Plate, which was a very dominant victory on the front end for Mighty Heart. And Andrew has a question, and I'm very scared to take it, but I will.
I do. So just to be clear, Belichick ran second in the Queen's Plate. In the press conference afterwards, did he say, "We're on to the breeders"?
I mean, that's a pretty big hoodie that horse had to put on.
Nice.
But
nice.
made it
And his
happen.
sleeves? Sleeveless?
Yeah. Sleeveless, of course. Ollie,
I
my
have many
boy.
questions.
Ollie, my boy, also running one of Andrew's pet horses. Did
I
not
got
run.
the horse once,
Yeah.
and
That
never
counts.
again.
I mean, 12-1 on the morning line,
go way back.
following a 4th place performance in an allowance event. But there is some history to be made. And moving on to Japan, we had some history that actually happened this past weekend as the Triple Tiara went down. Daring Tact became the first undefeated horse to win the Triple Tiara, and that's something that Gentile Donna and Amanai didn't do, so very historic date. And now we've got a chance for a Triple Crown winner in Japan, as well as Contrail, another undefeated horse, will try in the St. Leger. Now again, this is a big staying test as the 15 furlongs, it's based off of the English Triple Crown. So you've got the 2,000 guineas, you've got the traditional Derby distance of 1.5 miles, and now we're going to go all the way up to 15 furlongs, 3,000 meters with the Kukuka Show on Sunday in Japan, late Saturday night here on the West Coast in the U.S. And let's take a look at the 2 performances from Contrail leading up to Saturday.
In the middle at the moment, Win Carnelian joined by Sotono Flag and Contrail out wider. Salios back on the inside. Contrail goes up to Salios, and in the middle of Windendra out wide, Zende out wide. It's a 2-horse deal, a 2-horse battle on the outside. Contrail on the inside. Salios, Contrail, Salios. Contrail takes the Satsuki Show, wins out from Salios, and flying home late, Galore Creek into third. Then came Darlington Hall when it was all over. Win Carnelian was on the inside. That was the one I was trying to spit out. Sotono Flag. They get to the 400-metre mark. In the middle of the track, it's Deep Bond joined by Contrail. My Rhapsody still whacking away, and Salios starts to chime in out wide. It's Contrail, Salios, Contrail in front. Salios trying to get the better of it today, but Contrail's got the upper hand. Contrail, the favourite, races away. Contrail will take out the Derby, and 5 for 5. Salios second, Zende in for third. Sotono Impressor flashed up to run fourth. Then came Black Hole, followed by Galore Creek, Wakea. Then came Deep Bond, followed by...
And Contrail on Sunday in Japan, Saturday night in the States, looking for the Japanese Triple Crown. It's a pretty quiet weekend in the U.S. from a racing standpoint, from a stakes racing standpoint. So I wanted to make sure we touched on those two. But there is one big card, and it's happening in Maryland at Laurel. It is Maryland Millions Day, and really, based on what's happening in the rest of the country, I don't think they could have wound up on a better day.
Yeah, agree. I'm going to be looking on these races. I'm going to cover them on That's What G Said also, because I was looking around too. Not a whole lot great going on in Santa Anita. You get the New York bred day at Belmont, so you got some okay racing over there too. Keeneland, not really like one of those Keeneland stakes cards. The Sunday card at Churchill is kind of a fun one for if you're like to look. That's one of those all 2-year-old cards on Sunday at Churchill, which is sort of fun to take a look at too. But yeah, Laurel was the best this week. Let's get into that pick 4, man.
It's going to be so much fun. One thing I do want to spotlight before we dive into the Maryland Million card, the late pick 4 starting in race number 9, 12 races on the program. One of my all-time favorite facts about horse racing this day, one of the main players was the broadcasting legend Jim McKay, a guy whose autobiography I have on my bookshelf in my living room. One of my idols when I was growing up and looking to get into TV broadcasting. He, of course, a player in the Maryland ownership circuit, and he actually won one of these races one year with a horse named after his son named Sean's Ferrari, ridden by Lafitte Pincay. The significance of Sean McManus, of course, is he's the guy at the helm of CBS Sports right now. So a lot of useless knowledge coming in. Hopefully we can get some useful knowledge for you if you're playing this late pick 4, which starts in race number 9. Post time for this race, 3:45 if you're on the East Coast, 12:45 for those of us out west. This is the Maryland Million Turf, and if you like full fields, you're going to want to play Laurel on Saturday. Big field here. You're going to have the opportunity to go deep in some of these multi-race wagers. And, JD, one of the things that you told me right before we logged on is you need to take a look at the also eligibles, because if these horses draw in a lot of instances, they've got big chances.
And that was the disclaimer I wanted to put out before we start talking about the races and putting our tickets out there is, at least in my camp, and I know Gino's in a similar camp, we're kind of playing like the also eligibles are in certain places and not in others. So we're going to post updated tickets on Saturday. Be sure to look at those post scratches because there's a lot of moving parts with this card, and it just is one of those strange things with nominations sometimes and deadlines where, I mean, the best horses in a couple of these races, at least from my perspective, are on the outside looking in right now.
Yeah, that's for darn sure. It's going to be fun to take a look at, but on the other hand, those also eligibles now might have some wide trips. And if those horses are the ones getting bet, maybe that opens things up for a price. It's a fascinating card. If you've got some time leading up to Saturday, you're going to want to dive in. One word of caution, though, it's an early start. 11:25 a.m. for the first race, Eastern time, 8:25 for those of us out west. Gino, if this World Series game goes into extra innings, you might not get a lot of sleep.
I know, and I'm not getting much because I'm up early now for football on Saturdays and Sundays, so, oh, man. It's cutting into my drinking hours on those nights. I'll tell you that. But
those are the reasons you're not getting a lot of sleep.
I mean, I got a kid here that's going to be a year old in like 2 weeks, so that doesn't help the case either. But I'm in a similar situation as JD said. You have to check the also eligibles, especially right off the bat. For me, in the 9th race, right away, I'm going to be maybe singled, because I'm going to use 2 horses, but one of them may not draw in. I think if the horse does draw in, he's an absolute must-use because he's probably the speed of the field, and that's Dundalk, the number 13. I think he has an opportunity to steal this race if he's in. If he's not, I look and there's not a ton of other pace. That's why I would be fine singling the 9, Nick Papagiorgio, who's got a really nice tactical running style where he shouldn't be too far out of it. So if they're going slow, he's probably sitting 2nd or 3rd. I wouldn't even be shocked if they just looked around and said, hey, maybe we're the best horse. Let's just put him really close to the lead and maybe end up there. He is so consistent. He was beaten a nose a couple starts back. He's just been a completely different horse since they claimed him, and I think he's an absolute must-use. He's proven over this turf course. He's proven at the distance, no issue with the 1 1/8, anything like that. So I'll be using the 9. He might be a single if the 13 doesn't draw in. If the 13's in, I think you have to also use with that speed, and we'll be going to Vegas for the Vegas vacation with Nick Papagiorgio.
Yeah, similar thoughts to how I'm playing this to Gino's. I think Dundalk's an absolute must use. I also think the 14 Hanley's Houdini also could a lot of tactical speed there.
Mm-hmm.
Could have to send from the outside as well. So if that horse draws in instead of Dundalk, I mean, who knows?
Yep.
I want to include both of those to just make sure that you guys have that opinion out there. I do think Nick Papagiorgio is definitely my top selection in this race for a lot of the reasons that Gino said. I mean, you just look down your form and the consistency in running style, but there is ability, going back a little bit, Penn National earlier in the year. This horse can go coast to coast if given the opportunity. So lots of talent there for Jamie Ness and Trevor McCarthy will be up. And the other horse I wanted to include is Canyon's Roar, 92 morning line. I think that's, we're going to see a lot higher on this horse. I don't see the betting, but has won 3 straight races, but tough to kind of piece together what you can figure out from those races because they're against, some very interesting competition. Obviously, the dead heat with Nick Papagiorgio, that was a race that I've watched that replay, and I think Nick Papagiorgio won. It's one of those things where every angle of that does not look like that was a dead heat, but and obviously defeated Dundalk last out, but probably a little more pace dependent, needs somebody faster in front of him, and I don't know if needs a target, and I don't know if Dundalk and Hanley's Houdini don't draw in, I don't know who that target is to help Canyon's Roar, so it could just be one trip around the track. And Andrew, I know you see this slightly differently than the two of us. You're going quite a bit deeper.
Yeah, and again, my top selection breaks towards the outside. I think Dundalk may well be lone speed if he draws in. If he doesn't draw in, it's a wide open race. I'm going a little bit deeper, and I'm using a couple of horses coming out of the race on October 8th at Laurel. Very obviously a prep for this race, just looking at the conditions and looking at the horses that came out of that race. I've watched that race a couple times, and Benny Havens, who goes as horse number 7 in your program here, won that race, got disqualified in place 6th. The reason he got DQ'd in place 6th is because of interference that appeared very minor at the top of the stretch. But Rising Perry, horse number 2 in your program, did get interfered with a little bit and lost a 3-horse photo for 4th. It wasn't just that he lost 4th, he lost 5th too. And that's why Benny Havens wound up getting taken down. Did I think the interference was a ton? No. Do I understand why he got taken down? Yes. On the off chance that race is a little bit saltier than the morning line odds would indicate, I need to use those 2 horses. And I also need to throw in the horse that won this race last year. That's number 4, Mr. D'Angelo, who comes in off the pretty good race against Open Company, where he rallied from way back to finish 2nd, beating just a neck. Heavy on Toledo, you'd think had a lot of options. Lands on this one, 9-2 on the morning line. I think that's a reasonable price. 6 deep for me, but again, look at Dundalk. If he draws in, that's going to wind up being the linchpin to this race. If Dundalk draws in, for me, he's an A, and a number of the rest of these are Bs. If he doesn't draw in and you have a single elsewhere, this might be a good opportunity to hit the all button because a lot of these horses look very similar to one another. They've sort of taken turns beating each other. So I have coverage in this race here, even though I do think Dundalk will be very tough if he draws in. Nick Papagiorgio, obviously, very tough as well. But 6 deep for me to kick things off. At the very least, that should get us into the second leg of this sequence, and I have just cursed myself, and I'm going to need to play a pick 3 preemptively because I've just given my strategy.
And if you've cursed yourself, you've hurt us too, because I've got 9-13, and JD's got 9, 12, 13, 14, right?
Well, 14 could win.
So then he could be the only one alive, and I'm out. So yeah, thank you. So we're both out playing pick 3s again. You ready for my hunch play reach exacta 2 in this 9th race before we move on?
Okay.
Who in the Vegas Vacation movies, who is the mother? What actress plays the mother of Nick Papagiorgio?
Oh God, I don't know. I thought I had it, but I didn't.
In all the Christmas Vacation, Beverly D'Angelo.
Oh yeah.
What's the number 4? Mr. D'Angelo. How about that?
There we go.
Weird. weird. All these degrees of separation. There's just a lot of stuff going on here, you know?
Yes, indeed.
I just realized that about 2 seconds ago.
Weird things indeed, and your beard is definitely on the list. Anyway,
glowing.
we move things to race number 10. This is the Maryland Million Sprint, and there's some pretty solid horses signed on here. This is a restricted race, but it's a good restricted race. And this is another race where the also eligibles not only house some competitors, in my opinion, it houses the horse to beat.
It's probably the top 3 betting choices if they draw in, or at least 2 of them. The 11 Eastern Bay, the 12 Where She Told Me to Go would absolutely be live. The 4 Taco Supreme is another one coming out of the stakes who would probably be on a lot of people's tickets. So you have to take a look at those because look at what JD's doing. Go ahead, JD. Those are the 3 you're using.
Those are the 3 I'm using. If they don't draw in, I'm going to have to completely rethink my strategy here. I've written down that if they don't draw in, I'm going to single the 6 Hall Pass. So I will talk a little bit about Hall Pass, even though Hall Pass is not currently on my ticket. I do think that the 3 is an ultimate hanger to me, who will probably be the favorite one more great time if the A's.
I usually have a hanger here as a prop, and I don't have one.
I set you up, and this is what happens. And so I don't trust that horse to save my life. But what I do trust is Hall Pass seems to be the only horse in this field proper that can pass horses late going this distance. So I think Hall Pass gets my Hall Pass if 11, 12, and 14 don't draw in. But let me talk a little bit. I'll focus on who I think my top selection is, which is actually not Eastern Bay. My top selection, who technically Eastern Bay is the 8-5 morning line favorite. I'm going to the morning line second choice, the 12, Where She Told Me to Go, coming off of the Newcastle, which is a stakes race in Delaware. There was a lug-in mid-stretch, ended up being DQ'd after crossing the wire first in front by a length and a half. You look back, a race prior obviously lost to Eastern Bay, but I think there was a lot of excuses there first up after a while. So I really think that Where She Told Me to Go can set a nice stalking trip behind likely some early speed from the 3, and that's my top selection here. But again, these are all 3 also eligible, so we will have a ticket post scratches on Saturday. But if all 3 of these horses get in, I would like action on all 3 of them. Andrew, you mentioned you also like an also eligible here, so we'll go ahead and put your ticket up, and you can talk about Eastern Bay.
Yeah, I like Eastern Bay a lot in this race, provided he draws in. Beaten just a nose in the Grade 3 to Francis Dash a couple of weeks ago over at Pimlico. Before that, a very impressive stakes winner here at Laurel, rallying from a bit off the pace to win the Polynesian in 108-3. That's legitimate racehorse time. If Eastern Bay draws in, I think he's very formidable. If he does not draw in, I'll go with a couple of horses towards the inside. Hall Pass is on my ticket. That's for darn sure. Of the other ones, I probably prefer number 7, Lewisfield. I just think the Russell Road at Charlestown was too bad to be true. Remember, that 7 furlongs at Charlestown is a 2-turn race. This is just a 1-turn horse. And the second start off of a very long layoff with a first start off the layoff that wasn't bad may well have just been a bounce. And I think Lewisfield is in line for a much improved effort today. I'll also throw in number 3, One More Great Time, who hasn't won in a little while, but does have some early speed and I think might be prominent under Javion Toledo, who rides back after taking off last time. And if Eastern Bay doesn't show up, maybe One More Great Time has an easier time of it in this spot. 3, 6, 7, 11 for me. If Eastern Bay winds up running, Eastern Bay may very well be a popular single, and I will have tickets with Eastern Bay as a single. But if he doesn't, I think you need a little bit of coverage. Gino, how did you see this one?
Yeah, this is hilarious. So, Andrew, if Eastern Bay if Eastern Bay doesn't run, Andrew's got 3, 6, 7. I've got 2, 4, 9, 10. So that means, and with JD having the outside horses in the 6, I mean, put a ring around the 1. Like who didn't we mention, right? The 1 or the 5.
Karen's Notion. It's a very good time for Karens of late.
Oh yeah, this is great. This is great.
For the moment you have on your tickets, but
2, 4, 9, 10.
And by the way, Abuelo Paps, the only also eligible that JD did not use. That one draws in. That one's in the winner's circle.
Oh, this is great.
Guys.
So, and again, if Eastern Bay is in, or even if the 12 is in, those would be on my ticket. So we'll have the updated ones out for you come Saturday. But if the horses don't draw in off the also eligible, so I'll use 2, 4, 9, 10 in case they don't. And maybe in particular, let's say the 13 doesn't draw in, I'll throw a hall pass in now that you guys like them. You guys have talked me into using a little bit more, so I would have the opportunity to do so if 13 doesn't draw in and I'm single to Nick Papa Giorgio. But let's talk 2, 4, 9, 10. I thought the 2 Baptized the Boy. He's actually coming out of some races that are decent at parks. Some of those allowance races, sometimes you catch horses that have a lot of victories, like Appealing Future, who's a 12-time winner who he hooked a few different times. You also see Septimus Severus, who was behind Brilliant Chase. The 4 Brilliant Chase is going to be my top selection in here. He was 6th. He was about 4 lengths off, and he moved inside, then in between horses. He made a big 5-wide sweeping move. I thought it was impressive, and what I liked from that effort is seeing that now this horse is pretty versatile. He's got the ability to sit up close if he needs to, but he's shown now that he can come from off the pace. I thought it was a very impressive move, visually a very impressive win. He's shown me that he can handle an off track or a fast track, which I also think is a positive. I feel like he gets a great trip in here. So the 4 top selection, the 2 is sort of a long shot. I'll throw the 9 in. To me, that Penn race really jumps off the page. You get a big figure there, and then you come back at Presque Isle, and then last time out was 4th behind a horse named Jumpster, who came back to finish 4th out of 11 in not a bad $80,000 stakes race at Presque Isle. And I think for the moment, you can honestly put a line right through that race because it was a slow start and was inside, ran into traffic, had nowhere to go, and then just backed up. And the 10, kind of a wild card from the outside, could be any type. A horse who's not far from being undefeated. So those will be the 4 for me. 2, 4, 9, 10, top selection, the 4. If the 11, 12 draw in, they would be in the mix for me too.
One thing I will say before we move on, and by the way, in case you're seeing things, apparently my lighting has been kind of funky because of my inability to sit up straight. When I slouch a little bit, you can see the light reflecting off of there and the thing resets. So I'm going to try my damnedest to sit up straight for the rest of this.
Don't move.
Yes, I do work at a chiropractic college, folks. Thank you for asking. But the thing I actually wanted to talk about before I noticed that it was all of a sudden bright again is what Gino mentioned. Those points are incredibly valid. I just wanted to clear up the reason I didn't necessarily find myself drawn to those horses is, for me, Pennsylvania racing is like the forbidden planet. What happens there sometimes stays there. And I'm not saying the racing quality is anything bad or whatnot. It's just the surfaces at parks, at Penn National, and especially at Presque Isle with the synthetic, a lot of times that form doesn't necessarily travel.
Yep.
If, for instance, for the moments Pennsylvania form travels with them and the horse is 15-1, it's an overlap. Having said that, with the fields as big as they are, it's just not something that I necessarily feel comfortable doing. But on figures, Gino, your horses certainly do fit. And I wanted to point that out because we did joke a little bit about having differing horses, and that's why. It's that difference in handicapping philosophy.
Yeah, I'm the same way with all. Again, from a numbers perspective, all those horses fit. I just have not seen that transfer to Maryland. I mean, it's one of those weird things that some years it seems to, and some years it doesn't for Pennsylvania to Maryland. And this does not seem to be a year for that for me. So I've thrown them all off. But we've got a lot of differing opinions, and the differing opinions are going to just continue here because I'm going out on a limb here in Leg 3, which is race 11. And we're going a mile and an eighth on dirt for 3-year-olds and up. And I have a single in this spot. And I'm going to go ahead and single the number 5, Harper's First Ride.
Oh, that's really bold.
I know. I'm a chalk-eating weasel. But I think that was just such an impressive...
fell over that you were on.
There was a little bit of foreshadowing and joking with that, but that Pimlico Special was a special race. The way this horse rebroke, and once he got kind of that challenge up the rail, he just flew. And I really think this is a tough spot. I want somebody in this field to prove that they can beat Harper's First Ride, and I do think obviously Top Line Growth is somebody who could. potentially do that, but really I've seen what I need to see from Harper's First Ride. I don't think anybody else in this field is to that standard at this point in their careers. We're talking about 8 wins in 14 lifetime starts for the son of Painter. Harper's First Ride, a single for me here in race number 11. Andrew?
Harper's First Ride makes a lot of sense. Not my top pick for a couple of different reasons. First of all, if you subscribe to the ticket maker school of thought, the A's and B's and C's, if, for instance, the 11 horse draws in the second leg and wins, and Harper's First Ride wins the 11th, this Pick 4 is not going to pay squat. Those 2 horses are going to be very, very popular at the windows. As such, my A horse, and the way I will try to get some value out of this sequence, is by using number 3. I don't know if it's Monday Morning QB or Monday Morning Quarterback. I don't know if we're spelling it out. I'm just going to call him the 3 horse and move on. The 3 horse ran really well 2 starts back in the Federico Tessio, went second behind a horse named Happy Saver. All Happy Saver did next time out was win the Jockey Club Gold Cup. Now, mind you, it wasn't quite the Jockey Club Gold Cup of years past. J.D. holding up the number 5 for a 5-horse field. But
you still beat older. Yeah.
One of those horses was Tacitus, and if Tacitus showed up in this race, there wouldn't be show wagering.
Yeah.
That's how big of a favorite Tacitus would be. The last race, a complete throwout. I like that they tried turf at some point with this horse because this horse is bred for the turf. By imagining out of a not-for-love mare. That's turf top and bottom. So they tried turf just to see what they had. They didn't really have a whole heck of a lot, or maybe the horse just didn't like yielding turf. I'm drawing a line straight through that race. Monday Morning QB ran a 92 buyer speed figure in the Federico Tessio. If he runs that here and Harper's First Ride bounces, Monday Morning QB wins the race. 5-1 on the morning line. I think he's going to get bet down a little bit off of that. I think he's going to be about 7-2, but I do think he presents an interesting alternative to a horse that's 8-5 on the morning line and will probably go off even money or 4-5. 3 and 5 for me in this ticket structure. If you're going A's and B's, the 3 is an A. The 5 may well win, but he's a B for me.
I'm going to take a swing against Harper's First Ride. Now, for me, I think it's because the big effort, the big figure, and now you're coming back in 22 days. That was October the 2nd. We're talking about October the 24th here. That is my concern. That was the biggest race that he's ever run. And that was after running the biggest race that he's ever run. And so he's going to come back quickly after running 2 pretty big races. I'm a little concerned that he may just not quite be as good. And if he takes a little bit of a step back, the 3, who Andrew mentioned, and I co-signed basically on all of the things that you were saying about the 3. You mentioned Happy Saber, who he was behind. You mentioned completely throw out the grass race, and it's the 3rd start off the pretty sizable layoff, 3rd start off the form cycle. Plenty to like about Monday Morning QB, who is probably the one to catch in here. He's either the quickest or he's going to be sitting second if the horse from the rail guns, but he's going to be very close to it. The other horse for me is the 7 Top Line Growth. Why I went with Top Line Growth instead of Harper's First Ride. I think Harper's First Ride might have peaked, and I feel like Top Line Growth now is going to be making his 3rd start of just the year. I think he's got plenty of room to take a nice step forward. We last saw him on September the 20th. He was a good second over at Monmouth. I know Andrew will say the Monmouth form doesn't travel either, but
sometimes it depends.
Sometimes it does. I agree with you on that. I think he was behind a nice horse, though, Pirates Punch, who's a solid animal, and Top Line Growth just makes a lot of sense. One more small step forward, he's right there. If Harper's First Ride tries to get caught up because he showed some speed last time out and he's not quite as sharp, I have some concerns about him. So at a short price, I'll play against Harper's Ride here. I'll use a 3 and the 7.
The horse that scares me that none of us have is the 4 Cord Maker. And these are
going to win now. We're all
right.
These are the horses that scare me. I'm a big time form U.S. pace figure guy. Whenever you see a time form pace figure where the early and the late pretty much meet, this horse has an 88 early and an 89 late. That means they are, for the most part, a plotter. They run around the track, and you look at the past performances, and this is a very talented plotter that picks up checks for second and third recently.
Where's the hanger?
But
No hanger.
No hanger.
yeah, no. But you look at the 97 in the Pimlico Special. I mean, there was some gain late in that race, and it's a path of improvement here. Has improved the speed figure over the last 4 starts. Really peaked at the end of the form cycle last year, and you would think this is probably the end of the form cycle for the 5-year-old. Cordmaker scares me a little bit in this spot. And really, to me, I threw out the 3 and the 7 because I think in this spot, both of them probably need the lead. I'm worried about them wearing each other out.
I hear you. I mean, and
For me, with the outside draw, that's why I'm okay with the 7. If the 7 was drawn more to the inside, I feel like he would be forced a little bit. I think because he's drawn to the outside, it'll give him the opportunity to have some options. He can break, and if the 2 go to to his inside, end up going, or maybe 3 horses do, then maybe he sits 3rd or 4th. If nobody else wants to go and they want to take back, he can go. So I like horses like this when they have options and they're drawn to the outside.
Moving on to the final race, the ultimate head scratcher here.
Possibly the weirdest stakes race ever carded in North American history, and that is not a knock on these horses. It is a fantastic betting race, I will say that much. The problem is, where do you even start? Because a lot of these horses have not won in a very long time.
And Andrew, I'm going to let you start because somehow, some way, you only have 2 horses on your ticket in this spot.
Impressive.
Well, I was going to segue into this because I actually almost singled number 6 Belfort. And I understand Belfort looks like a dirt horse. I get that. However, if Belfort runs anything close, and I'm talking within 10 buyer speed figure points close to the races he ran 2 or 3 back on the main track, I still think he's going to be very tough to beat. This is a horse that has really turned a corner since being claimed by John Robb earlier this year. Won 3 in a row before a race that was just too bad to be true last time out. Was wrapped up late in that race. I'm drawing a line through it. Belfort does have a recent turf race, a fairly recent turf race from August of last year on the sheet. That was a race against far better horses. The 3rd place finisher out of that race, O Dionysus, has won a couple of stakes races. That's a nice horse. And I just think the back class is what puts Belfort through. However, I ultimately decided not to single because the more I looked at number 9 Air Token, the more I saw a horse as a fly comes buzzing in through. That's always loads of fun, especially when it's right by your mouth.
Yeah.
The more I looked at this race, the more I thought Air Token represented an overlay at 15-1. He exits a race run against much better competition, and in fact, it's the race that I mentioned earlier was a prep for the Maryland Million Turf. That was the race where Benny Havens got disqualified. Before that, the one turf race that he ran, he was a good second, beating just 3/4 of a length. Granted, it was against $16,000 claimers, but he rated behind a pretty slow pace, rallied pretty impressively late, and he doesn't have to be a whole lot in order to get the money in this spot. I think he's going to have the potential to sit back and make one run, and if he draws back to that form from August 27th, maybe he's got a shot at a really big price. 6 and 9 for me, in large part because those 2 horses made sense to me, but also because the more I looked at everybody else, the more I found myself saying, likes to run second, likes to run second, likes to run second. He's a dirt horse. And I ultimately decided, you know what? I'm going to go 2 deep here with my 2 strongest opinions in this race by far. I'm going to spread early, and if I can get here, maybe I can be alive to a nice score, especially if I beat Harper's First Ride in leg 3, which I'm going to try to do on most of my tickets.
I can definitely appreciate you taking a stand. I'm going to default to Gino here because he has 6 horses, and I, folks, have more than that on my tickets.
There we go. So the 2 no-knock raid, I actually thought he had a good start. He was saving some ground. He was 3rd on the inside. He was running. He was traveling well. He was in a great spot, and then he just got steadied. He had some trouble. And a lot of these horses that are lower level, it sounds funny saying lower level because we're talking about a stakes race, but they don't have multiple gears. You can't start and stop and keep going like that. And when you see horses that are coming out of $10, $15, $20,000 claiming races, keep in mind those are open races, and these are Maryland bred. So it's not as big of a drop as it might feel like sometimes when you see it. And in fact, it's sort of like a lateral movement if you're in a tough claiming race with the horses who have a lot of wins. The 2's on my ticket, the 3's on my ticket. Rule Yourself also coming out of that race that Andrew mentioned, which was a tough race. That was actually a very strong race. The 6 Belfour, I think you have to use because his grass race is fine, one of them, and he might crush this field. I think Earned It, coming out of probably one of the better turf races last time out, is going to be on my ticket. Dean Martini Kid, the number 8, probably the best turf horse in the field overall, so I'll be including him. That's the thing about this race. You don't need a lot for each horse to include them because that's what Andrew was saying. Like one angle or one thing to be positive about, and that's enough to want to include them. And that's why I even threw in the 13, 3 the hard way. His turf races aren't great, but I mean, look, he was behind Nick Papagiorgio in one of them, who I like. And if you're just using the numbers and figures, they're super comparable with the rest of this field. I would not be shocked at all to see this horse show up with a good effort. I like the 2 back when he was behind Earned It, so I threw the 13 as a bit of a price. I got the 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, and 13 on here, and I mean, I'm not even confident. And I'm not even confident with going that deep. Let's be honest.
If you've got a single in the first leg after scratches, maybe that's
you can go all. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm 8 deep here, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14. One of my strategies in this race, and this may sound funny, is I'm looking for a horse that the connections feel like they need to get on grass consistently, and that's where I'm going to land on the 8 Martini Kid. Martini Kid has traveled the Northeast looking for grass races this year. Monmouth, twice at Parks, and then at Penn National. Obviously got washed off at Parks one of the efforts and ran a very poor race. I mean, has ran very evenly so far, but I think this is and this is tough for me to say as this horse is coming off of 12-5 claimers. I think this is the easiest field this horse has seen in a while on the turf, which just sounds insane as a stakes race. But, I mean, this is an overnight starter condition at a sea-level track is essentially what this race came to, and that's no knock on the day. I'm just calling it like I see it.
Cool for these horses to be running for black type in 50,000, a piece of that purse. But we all discussed it prior to. It's fun from a handicapping standpoint because you can make cases for and against many. It's just not strong.
And I really hope Martini Kid has learned something from the 12th place finish in this race last year. That's the other thing that I want to throw out there. But yeah, looking at this more, I mean, I don't even have I'm going to talk about a horse that's not on my ticket for some reason, just because this kind of stuck out at me while I was looking at what all of you guys were saying, and why I even want to go deeper here is like the 12 Ludicrous Mode. I could make a severe case for a pace meltdown and this horse coming out of the back. I mean, you look at the race at Colonial. I know that's a interesting turf course that, based on the markings, that was on the outer turf course at Colonial. You have to keep in mind there are 2 turf courses there. Started and made up 16 lengths, made up 13 lengths in the final 3 calls to win by half a length, and just closed out of nowhere. And I watched a replay of that race quickly while you guys were talking. I mean, you could really, and this goes to Gino's point, you could probably sit here and make a case for any of these horses on the field. So there are some potential chalk early on in this sequence, but this is an absolutely wide open race, and you're going to want to use your entire budget. So we'll go over budgets because they're easy. All of us have $48 plays. I'll start with mine here. We're going 4 deep in the first leg, 9, 12, 13, 14. Again, 13 and 14 are also eligibles. In leg 2, we're going 11, 12, and 14. Right now, those are all on the outside looking in as also eligibles. We're singling the 5, and then we're going 8 deep on the screen for $48. Gino, your $48 play.
Yep, 2 deep. cheap to start, but keep in mind it may be a single of just Nick Papagiorgio if the 13 doesn't get in. We all agree that if Dundalk gets in, you have to use Dundalk with that, what it looks like controlling speed from out there. I'll go 2, 4, 9, 10 in leg number 2. The 4 is my top selection there. Brilliant Chase. So I liked seeing the new dimension that if this horse has a little bit of trouble, he can overcome it. And then again, keep in mind the 11, 12, 14, those are horses that you probably want to throw in if any combination of them are in. 3, 7, I'll take a stand against Harper's last ride, just hoping that he ran his big race just a few weeks ago, and I'm looking for a horse who may be ready to run their big race on Saturday. That could be the 3 Monday morning QB. That could be the 7. So I will use those 2, try to close things out. 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 13. Throw 4 more horses in if you can afford to. If you can shorten up and you have a stronger opinion somewhere else, because like Andrew and J.D. had said, it's just Andrew's right in that if the 6 runs comparable races, he's probably much better. We don't know that he is. There's a reason maybe why he hasn't been running on turf over and over again, right? Like he may just not be a great grass horse, and so then it just opens that field way, way up.
Yeah, that's for darn sure. And trust me, I'm not necessarily, hoping you're right, but I see your point. Now, my approach is simply spread in the first leg, try to get out of it. If Dundalk draws in, Dundalk is, I think, going to be lower than the 5-1 morning line. He'll probably be in the 3-1 range, even given the big field. But if he doesn't, wide open race, I'm 6 deep there to try to get out of it. Similar deal in race number 10. If the 11 horse draws into that race, Eastern Bay is going to be one of the biggest favorites in the sequence. If he doesn't, pretty wide open race. I understand why Gino used the horses coming out of Pennsylvania. I'm just not as crazy about horses from that circuit as others are, so I went 3, 6, and 7. 3 and 5 for me in race number 11. If the Pimlico Special winner comes back and runs another big one, I'll have it on some tickets, but I'm really trying to beat that one with Monday morning QB. And in the last race, if Belfour runs reasonably close to what we've seen the last couple of starts on dirt, with the exception of the last out dud at Pimlico, I think Belfour is going to be tough. If he doesn't, though, I'm covered with a potential big price in the form of number 9 Air Token. Maybe that one can run back to the race it ran on August 27th. Though I got to tell you, the more I look at number 3, Rule Yourself, the more I realize I probably want to have that horse, if not on this ticket, certainly in some saver doubles and some saver pick 3s, because there is something to like with that horse. It's just has only won once in the last year and a half. Horses like that just seem to find ways to lose, I can't get overly excited about. But then again,
that's
I
the
can't
kind
get
of a
overly
race.
excited about anybody else either.
That kind of a race.
It wouldn't take much for the 3 to rally to win, especially if they go fast early. But in the pick 4, I'll stick with 6 and 9. Again, all 3 of our tickets right now are $48. That will almost certainly not be the case when horses go postward for the 9th. Stay tuned to all of our Twitter accounts, Andrew Champagne Horse Tickets, and It's Me, Gino B, for some updated tickets as the race draws closer. JD, I see you signaling for something.
The last thing I want to mention that I forgot to mention with race 12, it's an extreme handicap condition, so you're also going to want to check the overweights and if there's any jockey changes, because there's some journeyman jocks that are going to have to try to make 108, 112. I mean, just some ridiculous weights. So just keep that in mind.
I'm seeing 108 for Air Token. I got the over on that. Nothing against the jockey who is a 20% rider, but 108. Man. Yeah. Oh boy. Final thoughts. Where do we even begin?
I'll start. I've got kind of a sad thing that I'm still trying to get some news on, and I don't want to break news on this, but Zia Park's gone without a track announcer the last few days. John McGarry is apparently having some health issues, so I just want to send his best, the best out to him. We try to get some more details on that all day, and they've been sparse, but just want to send our regards to a great announcer, and hopefully Zia Park, and it's kind of the other thing too with it is hopefully Zia Park can find a backup announcer, because apparently we learned they didn't have one, so they've just been running without an announcer the last 3 days. The last 3 dates, I should say.
That's tough, and obviously our thoughts and prayers with John McGarry, and it's a scary time for a lot of people. Just hope he's all right. I don't really know the situation. In fact, that's the first I'm hearing about it. So Yeah, it's that's pretty wild. We need an uplifting thing in the most dire way possible. Gino, they're batting a ball around a field for some pretty high stakes. I'm just going to let you take the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, Dodgers are tied. We recorded this on Thursday night, so it's 1-1 in the World Series. So I'm very excited. I'll be watching all weekend long, and it's the closing weekend of Keeneland. Remember, they're going to move to Churchill for a little bit and then back to Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup. So it won't be long before we're talking Breeders' Cup, which is just a few weeks away. And that Churchill, so Saturday, I'll probably look a little at Keeneland closing day and what we talked about here at Laurel. But Sunday is a fun card that I've always really liked. I can remember playing this card now for at least the last 5 or 6 years, that all 2-year-old card at Churchill. Every single race on the Sunday card, 2-year-old. I believe there's a couple stakes races. So you'll see a lot of horses that are going to be really like that are kind of unleashed on this day. I remember Byron was one of them who won big a few years back, and you'll see horses that get sent out there from the west, from the east, because it's a bigger 2-year-old day. The purses are a little higher. Keep an eye on that card. It's a lot of fun if you're looking for something to look at on Sunday.
I hit a pretty big pick 4 there a couple of years ago. I will certainly be playing that one. I remember it because this was back before the IRS changed their withholding rules, and the pick 4 paid like $583.
Right under.
Just under the limit. I was pretty stoked about that. One thing I do want to mention before we head out the door here, happy retirement to Tisnow. Tisnow retired from stud duty, and you know what? He's done more than enough. This is a horse that obviously was well known for his exploits on the track. When he got to the breeding shed, there were some concerns. Not necessarily because of his conformation or anything like that. It's just, was there really going to be a market for a son of C's Tizzy in the early 2000s? Well, there may not have been a ton initially, but over time, he turned into one of the more reliable sires out there, a source of stamina, a source of soundness, a source where, okay, you're going to get a horse that's sturdy more often than not, a horse that potentially wants to go 2 turns. Could use more sires like that, just saying. Happy retirement to Tisnow, a horse that has certainly earned it, and I just hope that beard winds up getting retired sooner rather than later.
It will.
I want you to stream it on Twitter as it's happening.
As it's going. It's going to take like an hour to get rid of it.
Do it as you're analyzing stuff for Stable Duel. By the way, you like anything for Stable Duel this weekend?
Oh, good. Keep an eye on some cool contests this weekend. The Keeneland one, Santa Anita, and Woodbine, I believe they have contests. They have some new formats that are cool too. One of them is basically just a double up. So if you are one of the top 40%, you double your money. It doesn't matter where you finish in that top 40%. And then they also have your top 10s that they're dealing with. And so for me, the Keeneland Saturday one, the last few weekends, they've been the ones that are, I think, that usually around $25 entry with the bigger pools. And I know you did pretty well in one of them a couple of weeks ago. So that one on Saturday will be my
focus. Last person to make money. It was pretty cool. I had to sweat it out because the horse I used in the last leg decided, you know what, I'm just going to spot everybody 5 lengths at the start. But he wound up rallying just enough to where I made the money by, I think, 0.6 of a point.
Nice.
So whoever finished 21st in that contest, I am so sorry.
Bremont's going to love the free marketing here, but I'm going to be playing the Saturday Woodbine contest. There's a $1,000 bonus to the winner that they're throwing out at that one. And there's also a contest where you get a $10 bonus in your account, even if you don't place, if you beat either Paulie or Blackjack. So that's something to keep in mind. Beat the Boys is something Stable Duel's doing. I had another final thought, Andrew, and you just totally blew over it. And it's not negative. I'm just saying that Turf Paradise has released the dates that they're going to try to run in 2021.
Cool.
So they're going to run Monday through Friday.
That's smart, right?
Okay. It's smart, but also that is definitely an on-track handle racetrack, and it may not seem like that, but it is a very family-friendly Hispanic community. Go out cool. Saturday, Sundays, and go out and do that. And I'm worried. And the only exception is going to be Kentucky Derby Day, which is actually going to happen again on May 1st. I mean, it just seems like we ran the Derby, but May 1st they're going to run another one. Crazy, I know. But 84-day race meet. Monday through Friday, starting January 4th through May 1st is what will be in front of the commission at a special meeting next Friday. So that's some Arizona updates. I try to give everybody Arizona racing updates because it's crazy.
Yep.
Arizona's crazy.
I've asked you this a couple of times on a couple of different things. Will we have racing at Turf Paradise next year?
I think now I'm willing to say maybe. Okay. I was a solid no for a long time. I think part of this is true is I think some of the equipment that was rumored that Turf Paradise had sold off was more in like the concessions realm than the horse racing realm. So I also think that part of this move is to limit spectators and try to get more off-track handle. Just that's me spitballing, editorializing here. But interesting to see that got released today. Now, Turf Paradise, of course, because they're Turf Paradise, they released this as so. The commission still has to pass these dates, which they have not as of yet, but Turf Paradise sends out a press release like, yep, this is what we're doing. So we'll see.
And obviously, we will keep everybody posted here on the Champagne and JD show. If you like what we do, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get all of our weekly updates. We've got some fun stuff in the hopper for the next couple of weeks. Breeders' Cup just 2 short weeks away. Get excited for all of that. Gino, we hope that you will be shaving your beard far sooner.
Just it'll be one way or another. It'll be gone in a week. So
let us know if any living organisms fall out when you do that.
I'm sure there'll be a woodland creature or two that pops out of here at some point. Thanks again, guys. Anytime you need me here. Andrew, I've had you on my show plenty of times. JD, I got you on there one time. Maybe we'll do with you and Andrew both, or maybe I'll just bring you on to talk some racing one weekend. Thanks again. Always love talking with you.
It's our pleasure. Gino Buccola from the That's What G Said podcast, available where all fine and not so fine podcasts are downloaded. Listen in. Usually Thursdays or Fridays of most weeks, you can hear myself, Gino, and Darren Zoccali talk old school wrestling. Yes, for the purpose of these conversations, I am the honorary Italian. We have a lot of fun. You don't want to miss that. A couple of weeks ago, we had Ralph Strangis, a former play-by-play broadcaster for the American Wrestling Association, who some of you might know better for his work with the Dallas Stars, and that was really freaking cool. You're going to want to check that out if you haven't listened to it already. If you have any interest in old school wrestling, you don't even have to admit it. You can be a closet geek like some
Nobody
of us.
knows. You just click it. Yeah,
it's fine. That they have incognito browsing for a reason. I'm not going to list the other reasons, but they have it for this one reason as well. Just saying. For JD Fox and our special guest, Gino Buccola, I am Andrew Champagne. JD, I'm not going to get into it. Our thoughts are with you, buddy, over the next couple of days. I'm going to let you have the punchline here just because that's just the kind of guy I am. You take it.
All right, everybody, stay safe, vote, and stay off the beaches.